No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
I'm into it. I'm actually into it.
We are not doing that.
That's
What
so
is
funny.
up, Lucas?
What's up,
TBD
brother?
Real Estate Podcast coming to you. It's 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 o'clock in Georgia.
I mean, 9:18 to be really specific, but yeah.
9:18. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. We start at 6 and 9, but we're going through some technical difficulties.
True.
I'm super pumped about today, bruh, because we have a guest. We have a special guest, and we both know who this person is.
True story.
And I was trying to figure out like her intro, and the best way that I can describe her is a solo agent who is very successful, and she does it the right way. Like she built her business the traditional way, like almost like brick by brick, brick and mortar. And one of the thing that is so memorable, and I tell this story over and over, she farms so well that people walk up to her house with her postcards. Like that's like enough said, right?
Yeah.
So we are trying to we're gonna put the talking smack a little bit later, but I really want to just bring her on and start like really dive into it.
Sounds good. Let's go.
Cool. So here is Beth Avery, and welcome, Beth.
Welcome.
Thank you. It is true that someone in my neighborhood called me, "Hey, you're the postcard lady, right?"
Well, you told you told me that story, and I'm just like, because one thing that we do here is we talk a lot of trash. We talk a lot of we gotta be better. Like the intention of us doing what we're doing is we would love for the industry to be better. And as two former real estate agents who are selling, and now we're not, but we still want to make a difference in the industry because we both work in it. And when we had met and I was talking to you, and we talked for a while, like we were a good 2.5-3 hours. Like I was just listening to your like I've always known you as the master farmer. Like that should be like hashtag. But then and then you told me about like the whole mini farm, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like you need to explain this to people out there, because here's what's been happening, and I don't mean to hog the conversation. I'm just really excited. So 12 to 15 months ago, everybody was on this like I have to save money, like I have to cut down the expense mode. And something strange has been happening lately, because a lot of these groups and a lot of these forums, everyone's like, hey, what are you doing to generate business? Like, where are you getting your leads? And it is extremely rare that someone responds with like, I'm farming. It's almost like people don't think it works. So I want to prove them wrong. What say you, Lucas?
Listen, I mean, I want to hear what Beth has to say, but I know farming works. The amount of junk mail I get in my my mailbox every day proves that mail works, and then high quality targeted postcards that build a brand. I mean, it feels like almost like that works.
Right.
But there are, like you said, a lot of people are like, does this really work? Because what you get told, at least when I started, and I remember the first place I talked to about joining was Coldwell Banker Bain in Kirkland. And they were like, oh, we're going to get you doing a farm. You're going to do this. And then, after 6 to 12 months of doing every door direct for, a zip code or a neighborhood, you're going to start getting deals. And I was like, holy cow, that just feels like a big expense, a long-term play, and it's really hard to grasp that when you first get into the business. So,
right.
I would
So
love
Beth,
to hear.
tell us who you are, and where you predominantly do business, and just kind of let's just dive
Just
into
the intro? Okay.
Yep, you definitely do have a unique business model. Like in this day and age where everybody's like, oh, I need an assistant, I need this, I need team. Like you're a true solo agent, and you are very successful.
Yes.
So,
yeah. I'm recovering corporate, so just like you're recovering agents, I'm a recovering corporate person. So One of the things I love about this business is I told myself I'm never having employees again. I'm never doing a review for anyone. Like I did that. I had 500 employees. It was great. Anyway, so I'm Beth Avery. My branding is Elizabeth Avery, second generation real estate agent. My mom was an agent for, we'll just say 30 years. We'll stop there. She doesn't like it when I say more than that. In the Kirkland, Bellevue, Washington area, just outside of Seattle. Um, and I'm a solo agent. I don't have an assistant. I once in a while might have a transaction coordinator, someone to help out, but pretty much predominantly I do all my marketing, I do all my listings, I do all my buyer showings, everything myself. So I'm not here to be the biggest agent. I don't need to dominate the world, but I make a nice living for myself and have time with my family, and that's have some rentals, and life is good. So, what else?
Well, that's that. See, that's the you hit that important part, and because there's a lot of people out there that wants to be the quote unquote rock star, right? Which I hate that term, by the way. Um, but it's like you're in a place where you're very content, and sometimes like more is not more. Like more
Yeah,
is less because it
like
takes so much away from you.
2021.
Right.
We all had fantastic years and unbelievably sold more homes than I ever even wanted to. And I was just looking
Hmm.
at those numbers. I was like, ugh, gosh, like there was just no balance. It was just all work, 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 work.
Right.
Um, and part of it is over the last, I would say, 5 years, really being intentional about where I'm going to spend my time, where I'm going to spend my energy. I'm still building a business. But like you said, I don't need to be the biggest agent in the world. I don't, our communities, should have looked at population. Like there's more than enough people to go around. Let's just say that. And I
Absolutely.
like, and when it comes to farming, I like being a big fish in a smaller pond. I get to know the neighborhoods more. It allows me to, I think, build my skills a little better as far as like previewing houses and just knowing kind of, it's still a multi-city area.
Right.
Um,
Well,
but I don't need to go to Seattle.
take us down that farming journey. So I know I kind of led off with, people come knocking on your door with your, postcard, but
It
like
didn't start that way.
we got to kind of put it into perspective because we
Yeah,
don't want people thinking, oh, this happens overnight. So
no.
take us on that journey from the beginning.
Yeah, so probably 5, 6 years ago, well, probably longer than that, 8, 9 years ago, like every agent, you're looking for leads. Where am I going to get my business? How am I going to get my business to come to me? So I've wasted money on everything. Anything that there's out to sell, I have tried it. Let's fast forward. Let's just like help agents skip all the nonsense. And then also find like the niche that you enjoy. So I am not, even though my corporate background, I was working for a company that did online leads. So like I have nothing against them. I just find that I'm not going to probably be the best person to nurture those kind of leads. And I know other people who knock it out of the park. So, you spend the money. And then I really started thinking about farming. And my mom had farmed the neighborhood we grew up in. And she was the person who, every 4th of July put the flags in their front yards and did HOA stuff. And I don't think she really ever did traditional postcards, but she was part of the board. She was part of the school. So she was the known person in the community. And some years ago, she kind of stopped doing that. So one of the things, my goal is that she said that she wanted to retire. I wanted to figure out how to kind of pick that up because I had grown up in that neighborhood. I didn't want the name recognition to go to waste. So we started kind of co-branding some farming. And again, I tried like every postcard company. And then in 2016, I think, 16, 17, I found the company Corfact, and we can talk a lot more about. Well, I don't get paid by them, but
Oh,
I'm a huge
we're all
advocate.
about name dropping, so feel free to name
Okay.
drop.
Well, we'll get into more details, but so I started using Corfact because when you do the postcards, like I have some of them right here. Like here's a just sold postcard. They now use QR codes on the back, but they used to do just key codes. So when someone gets this, they actually can log into a landing page and get an instant value on their house. And there's a CRM attached behind it. So I know someone at this address has a unique key card or key code. They've logged in. And now I know, Tom Jefferson at 123 Main Street has looked at the value of his home. And I would say maybe now, in the beginning, I would say it was closer to like 70 to 80% of people would also provide an email. When they logged in, it was just kind of part of the funnel. With QR codes now and more mobile, I would say it's probably 50% of people, but that's like huge. So I'm also getting emails. So I know someone who lives at an address has, taken a small step of checking the value of their home. And it's a lot more powerful than every door direct or any other postcard company that you're just like, I don't know, does the mailman even deliver them? Right? Like you just have no feedback loop at all. So to me, this was a game changer. So I started doing this. And like most agents, you end up getting busy. So every month I would set a reminder to create a postcard. They have templates, but you'd figure out what you're going to say and you'd upload your pictures and you'd send it out. And then all of a sudden 6 weeks go by and then maybe 8. And then you're like, shoot, I didn't even do one this quarter. Right. So super inconsistent. And you might as well be throwing that money away because it's the consistency that gets it. So I'm calling
Right.
Corfact. I don't know. I'm talking to them about something. I'm probably having some trouble uploading something. And I'm just lamenting to the customer service, which by the way is fantastic. They're not a real big company, but they have great service. So anyway, I'm talking to him about it. And he's like, oh, well, we're beta testing this elite program. And I'm like, tell me everything. So what they did is they created I guess a subscription, but you get personalized postcards. So like these postcards have a consistent brand. So there's me, and I got to choose the background. That's a just sold. Here's another one. So every single month, they all have this same billboard, I think they call it, of me and my smiling face there. And then I change this message every month. And I pick these 12 months in advance. If I want to change them, I can change them at any time. But so one time a year, I sit down, I decide the messaging for 12 months, and it just happens. I can change my mailing list anytime I want. I can add, I can delete people. But I know that for 12 months in a row, these postcards are going to go out, get delivered. And it's been amazing. So it was literally a game changer for me because instead of throwing away money, I was actually now making money, which was fantastic.
So
That
it's
is amazing.
truly like once a year, set it and
Set
then
it and forget it. Yeah.
Wow.
Forget it in the sense of like, there's nothing else you have to do, but I'm in my account probably more than for sure, more than even my CRM, because people will log in and I'll get notifications, mobile or email, and it'll say, someone's checked their value. And maybe I recognize their name, like, oh, that person's been checking their value a lot. Or, hey, I've never seen that name or that address. So I'm always like Snoopy. I want to know like what house it is and do I know the person? And so I'll look it up. But these are very quick things that you can do. And then pre-COVID, I was way better at this. When I get someone new who would log in, I would do like a mini CMA door drop. And I have a marketing book too. So sometimes I drop off a marketing book, and this is just me. And if have any questions, do a little handwritten note, drop it on their door, and go. And I just got out of the practice of that during COVID because no one wants you to show up at their door.
I love everything you just said. I love that you're doing a little bit of light stalking. Like somebody
Yeah.
checks the
Oh,
website
yeah.
and you're like, get on Property Radar and check them out. And
No, exactly. How long have they been there? Do they have equity? Is it the other thing? I'm always like, if they've registered with an email, is this the person's email that would match the property owner name, right? Like if it went to, Beth Avery, but there's a Mr. James Dalton email, and I'm like, do I have the name wrong? Because people buy and sell and things happen, or sometimes it's their kids. So in my farm, there's, I would say, I don't know, higher than normal, but there's a good chunk of original owners, second owners who have been in the house 30, 40, 50 years. I sell lots of estates every year, kids downsizing their parents. So I like also building those relationships to whoever's helping them. on that journey. And then the really, really interesting thing is I would say half of the calls that I get to do market analysis, right? So someone's calling and they're like, hey, I've been getting your stuff. I show up. Well, two things. One, I would say half of the calls I get, they have never once logged in. Never once. I have no idea who they are. But they'll call and they'll say, hey, Beth, thanks so much for sending me these cards the last couple of years. I really appreciate you staying in touch with me. I think it's time that I talk about selling. I'm like, okay, I'm pretending like I know who they am. Oh, sure,
Mm-hmm.
Sally, great. Oh, yeah, just I want to make sure I have your address correct. Can you read that to me again? Right? And you show up, and I am not kidding you, especially the older the person is. I have a client, she was, I don't know, in her 80s. She called and screamed at me to stop mailing to her. Because you get this, like,
Yep.
you're being successful with farming when people get really mad and you've like somehow ruined their life by sending a piece of mail to you. I'm not kidding you. So fast forward. So she calls, tells me to take her off her list. I do. About 6 months later, maybe a year later, either she or her daughter calls me, one of the two. I don't remember these things. Like, whatever, I get these calls. I put them on a spreadsheet, make sure I don't ever market to them again. And she has all of my cards, and it's like a stack this big. And she's like, I know I told you to stop marketing to you, but I saved all of your cards, and this is your stack, and then here's everyone else's stack, and it was like 5 cards. And she was so embarrassed. And I'm like, look, it's fine. Because she had said she's going to die in her house. She's never going to move. And obviously life changes and whatnot. And so I just love that story because, one, even when people say, no, stop marketing to me, they sometimes still need your services. And two, it just shows that being consistent, you get recognized. I don't know. She lives 3 blocks from me, but I didn't know her family. I moved into the neighborhood after her kids had grown, so I didn't know her kids either. But yeah, so anyway, that's just one of my
What was it
stories.
like? What was it like? Describe that feeling, like the very first time you realized, oh my gosh, farming works.
Oh my gosh. So I remember it vividly because it was actually before I started the elite program. And it's when I got serious about starting to I talked to probably 10 other agents in the office or that I networked with in one of my CRS group and stuff. And just like, can I take you to coffee? I want to talk about farming. What are you doing? And got kind of what everyone else had done, right or wrong or indifferent. So I had started doing it inconsistently, like I mentioned. And I get a call from, this is one of my neighbors about a half a mile away. And he's like, hey, I need to move my family and it's going to probably be next week. No, maybe I didn't even know that showing up. Anyway, he just said, I got one of your postcards. I hear you're the neighborhood agent because on the postcard at the time, it said, you're a neighborhood agent.
Oh my god.
And I was like, that's right. I am the neighborhood agent. I will be over tomorrow. And I don't always do this, but I actually had brought with me all the listing paperwork. I don't usually do this. I usually do like a 2-step thing, but just for whatever reason that time. And we literally sat there and filled out the listing paperwork. I called my agent, Jay, this may have been a house that you did for me early on.
Wow.
And I'm like, let me see, because he's like, we're moving back to Japan. Microsoft wants us there next week. They're already like packing up. Can you list my house? And I was just like, no, it cannot be this easy.
Wow.
I love that.
And you wish they were all like that, but it's also so telling that people don't care about your postcard or your mail until they need you. So like, be my guest, recycle this every month. But when they start thinking about selling, there's a postcard on the way, right? So someone's only without my face in their mailbox for 3 weeks or so, and it's going to show up again. So it's the easiest because I'm never going to door knock. I'm never going to cold call. I applaud everyone who does that. Like, more power to you. I am an introvert. I'm a social introvert, is what I say. And this is the best money I've ever spent hands down. Like I said, I've tried everything and it just works. So I'm all in. So like when you were saying 2 years ago when people were pulling back, I doubled down.
Double down.
I
Got
actually
more.
doubled my farm about 3 years ago. So I went from about 3,500 and I'm up to about 7,000.
Wow.
So you mentioned that you kind of tried to take over, like not take over, but grab some of that same attention that your mom had, get the shine from her. I'm curious though, besides that, how did you pick your farm? And by the way, I absolutely love when you said one of my neighbors a mile and a half away. Because you
Oh,
really are thinking about the community as
yeah,
as a community.
yeah,
This is my area. This
yeah,
is my home. These are my people.
yeah.
So how did you decide where to expand your farm to? Were you looking at price
Um,
point, or what were you thinking about?
so I've shifted farms. So we'll talk about farms in a couple of different ways. Like, so in fact, I just talked to an agent who called me because I'm on like the Core Fact. Hey, if you're thinking of this like testimonial page. So I had about an hour conversation, timely, this morning with an agent over in Port Orchard. So she was kind of talking about this too. So for me personally, I started with my neighborhood where I live in East Bellevue. So this is like 50s, 60s neighborhoods. I love mid-century homes, so I love selling in the neighborhood. And it's a good price point. We're now hovering around a million. When I started, probably $700,000-800,000 price point. And so for me, it's easy. I walk the neighborhood. It's close. It's convenient. Why farm somewhere further away, right? Unless you don't like your neighbors or your neighborhood or don't want to farm. And then I kind of looked at how many houses I could afford to do because it's always about how much budget you have. So at that time, I think I started with probably 500. The day I got the listing, though, for the neighbor who said I'm moving to Japan, I actually doubled my farm. So I started like 1,000. So I kind of just did this mushroom out, and that's how I started. And you know, I'm probably doing a good maybe 50% of the zip code now. So I do mostly single family. I have done condo complexes and have been successful in the past. And I'll kind of test something out. I always make sure I farm something at least a year, if not 2 years. And if after 2 years that pocket is not generating, or I decide, because it doesn't cost any more to farm a condo as it does a $2 million house. So you kind of figure out like, okay, well, where do I want to spend my money? So I evaluate that probably quarterly at least and look at pockets. So like there was a pocket south down by like Factoria. You guys know the area. Um, Newport Hills, and I had done really, really well there. I got 4 listings in the same neighborhood. So for like 2 months, I had my sign in neighbors. It was like the best farming ever. I sold my friend's house. So I had added that neighborhood to my farming because I knew I was going to be listing their house. I put the sign in the yard. I started farming. I got the next door neighbor called, hey, I need to sell my house. I sent out just listed, just sold postcards. I had another neighbor, hey, I need to sell my house. And then the neighbor across the street did the same thing. It was literally almost like, hey, you're the neighborhood agent. But then my street got broken. But that was a great summer. And so I still had that pocket, and I had expanded and done more farming up on Newport Hills. And now I've just gone back to that original one. For whatever reason, I'm not getting any traction. People aren't looking at the postcards. Some days I'm like, maybe the mailman's throwing them away. I don't know. So that's kind of.
That is fascinating because a lot of people think farming is like passive, right? But what I heard you just do is like you're actively farming, where you're looking at the numbers and you're going, this kind of cool downs, but then this is kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to weed your garden, right? Like you got to
it,
weed it out, and you don't want, it's a lot of money. So
the
you want to
the
look at where it's
biggest
going to be.
the biggest misconception about farming is like people do it for like 3 months and they go, it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
No, if you're not going to commit to it for at least a year, it's a waste of money. You might get some stuff. You might get one thing or two things, and that's great. That's just going to be, random call arrival kind of statistics.
Hmm.
But it's not enough time to produce. So since day one, my farming has always paid for itself, and then by year 2 and 3, it became profitable.
So you
Wow.
mentioned just sold, just listed cards.
Mhm.
Are you doing that for every property that you sell? Or are
No,
you
I
being
will do
targeted?
it. That's a really good question. I do it for properties that I'm farming
Hmm.
or I want to farm. Um, Again, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get the one off. But if it's in my farm, I try to send both a just listed and a just sold. So that person's getting my regular farming stuff, and then they see 2 more postcards from me. And I won't do it I'll do it for geographic reasons or areas. So, like, my farm is about half of a zip code. So, it's kind of East Bellevue. So, it lines up from the Redmond almost down all the way through Lake Hills now, but east of 148 for the most part. So, if I list anything in that, I'll say neighborhood, it's close enough that it's worth saying, hey, look, I listed your neighbor's house. And then I have a farm in Kirkland, so I won't send my just sold Bellevue postcards to the Kirkland farm.
Okay.
But I do email market to folks who have left their email. And so they can digitally, for no cost,
Right.
they'll see my just listed. I don't generally do just sold emails, but I suppose I could.
Yeah.
So they're
I
getting
mean,
digitally marketed too as well.
this is fascinating for me because so my marketing service is helping agents be omnipresent, but I do it through digital, right?
Mhm.
Using content, long form, short form, email campaigns. But it's almost like you're doing the physical delivery thing, and it's amazing. You have to tell everybody about mini farm because
Oh,
I'm still like giggling over when you first told me. Like, it's brilliant.
yeah, so my mini farms are farms around listings. So, you're farming, you're getting business. I was just looking at like my stats so we could talk about it. Like 50% of all of my listings came from Corvac farming this year.
Wow.
Wow.
Or will. I mean, I included some pending and some stuff that may not happen until January. But for the sake of argument, if all goes well, it looks like I'll have like 17 listings this year. And 50% of those came from my postcard farming. And as a total net for this year, it's actually kind of shocking. It will be I'll have 17 listings and only 4 buyers. So instead of having buyers sellers 50-50, it's really leaned toward the listings,
Mm,
which is exactly what I want to have happen in a market like we see today. So all that
right.
being said, so when I take a new listing and I get a referral, a past client, wherever the listing is coming from outside my farm, I look at that area and decide, like, oh, do I want to set up a mini farm? Because what I've found successful is if it's a neighborhood, oh, I've sold in the past, or it's a past client, and it's like, oh, this would be a great little addition to my farming activities. I'll create a new garden. Let's just call it a new garden. And I'll look at that neighborhood and maybe I'll do the subdivision if it's like a new construction build and there's only 20 houses in there. I decide geographically, like, who's going to see my sign in the yard? That's a big part of it.
Hmm.
So maybe it's just this street and it's 10 houses. And so I create these mini farms. And if I know a month ahead or 2 months ahead of time, as we often do, um, I will start farming. Also, I'll create the email list. I upload them to my Corvac campaign. They add them right in. So there's 10 new addresses being mailed to. And by the time my sign goes in the yard, they may have already seen 1 or 2 postcards. And then what I love about those is I'm always doing open houses whenever possible. And then you get the sellers coming in and meet my open houses. I talk to neighbors, and I'm always welcoming neighbors in because those are the people's houses that I want to sell next. I want to sell this house, but as we know, most agents are going to have a buyer anyway, and I don't double side my deals anyway. So I look at it as an opportunity to get more listings.
They probably show up at your open house with the postcards like,
They
"Oh, you're
do.
the neighborhood agent."
They do.
I mean,
They
how
do.
brilliant is that? Like, the minute you know that you're gonna get the listing, like you start farming like that
Yeah,
little
if it's a neighborhood I
little
want to
mini.
add to my farm, like,
It,
maybe it's an area that I'm only going to do a just listed, just sold because I'm not going to go all in, but I'm like,
hmm
let's just do a little marketing. But if it's an area that I want to actually like, yeah, I'm going to commit to this, 10 more names, 20 more names, whatever, for a year, then I add them to my farm. I may even co-farming with um, another agent in my office. She's been wanting to farm for quite some time and just didn't feel confident about it. So, and it happens to be kind of adjacent to my Bellevue farm. So I was like, well, Cami, so I'm doing this with Cami Muse, you guys know. Um, and we've had some shared clients and stuff in the past. So I'm like, I'll create it, I'll manage it. We'll split it 50-50 and anything we get out of it. So we just started that a couple months ago. So too early for success. But I mean, I'm like, no one has to convince me. I'm trying to convince other people. Like, it will literally
Yeah.
change your business.
that's
I
amazing.
I love so many of the things you're saying. I mean, you're kind of circle prospecting without the phone calls, right? You're going,
Yes.
I'm selling a house here. I got to touch everybody. I got to let
That's
them
right.
know. One of my favorite agents out in Seattle actually does, when he has a buyer, he throws an open house party for them. So it's like a
Nice.
barbecue, and he then invites everybody and does a similar thing. But I love
Smart.
the addition of actually going, I'm not going to just like say hey to you once. I'm going to put you in my book of business. Like, you're now my neighbor. By the way, you
Yep.
said earlier, the postcard said, I just sold your neighbor's house. I really feel like you should lean into being the neighbor, and you should just say, I just sold our neighbor's house, and really just triple down.
I know.
on-
You know what? When I just had a Bellevue farm, I did lean more into your Bellevue agent, our neighbor. But now that I have all of these other geographic, I pulled back. I don't even know.
She's like truth in advertising. I can't
Well,
tell a
yeah, and
lot.
you can't say like you're the Lake Hills or the Kings Gate
Right.
expert anymore,
Right.
and they get all cranky with.
Oh, is that
with
a
stuff.
new Northwest
That-
MLS
that-
rule?
Yeah,
That's
a couple
that's the
years.
thing.
Yeah, a couple years ago they changed it.
Dodge the
Yeah,
bullet there.
and yeah, so I had to make these ones more generic. But yes, that used to be a big part. And that was my favorite call when he's like, I see here you're the neighborhood expert. Yes.
Right.
Now, speaking tactically about being the neighborhood expert, one of the things you just mentioned briefly, and I would love to touch on this and anything else that you do, is you would sometimes drop a CMA packet, whether that's dropping it off at the door or sending it to them. One of our partners in crime in the Bothell Remax office back in the day, Vince, used to do that all the time. He would, like, once a quarter, you'd see him and his team stuffing these boxes and boxes of envelopes with CMAs and a letter, and he sends it out. I'm curious what other tactics you're using to, when you get somebody's name, you said you put them in an email service. What else are you doing to kind of connect in other ways or move them down the funnel?
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to slide into don't tell people how lazy I am.
I love it.
Because since COVID, I really have not. I mean, part of it is I've been busy. So we'll say perfect. All the tools that I've used in the past, and Beth is not doing this so good anymore.
We accept it. We accept
Okay.
that.
So I have a marketing book that's like here. I'm gonna move really quick and grab it. I can't stretch that far.
While you're doing this, I pulled up some of your listings that you've done recently and totally got nostalgic for Kirkland and Redmond and the split levels, which I never thought I would say, but like totally nostalgic for the neighborhoods out in Kirkland.
Everyone either loves or hates a split level.
I'm not usually a fan, but like it's like, oh, look, it's home. I see that
You know-
because split
yeah.
levels aren't like this other places.
No, exactly. And if you don't want a split level in the area, too bad, because United Homes built half the houses in the greater East Side area. And so what's really interesting now, they're all coming back into vogue. So like I grew up in one and then my parents hated them, but they were great for, you shove the kids downstairs. Well, now everyone wants them for ADUs and for mother-in-law spaces. And the one I grew up in actually had a mother-in-law space, plus how it was, they finished the basement. So my younger clients love them. And I walk in, I'm like, it's another split level. The other side note, it makes it really easy when someone says, oh, I don't like this floor plan. great. We don't need to see 50% of the listings.
There you go.
Just
Okay.
love it.
So this has been a real game changer for me as well. So I have these marketing books. So I have a book, How to Sell for Top Dollar. I have a buyer book, Finding the Home of Your Dreams. And then I have an estate sale one, Selling Your Inherited House. So when I have time, so I'll get the lead in. I try to do it within 3 to 5 days so they even remember doing it. So the quicker you can do it, the better. I would drop off my book. I would do look at their house in the tax records, figure out, okay, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, it's approximately blah blah blah. Pull a couple out of the MLS, print them. I mean, I would not even make these fancy. Today, I would probably use like Cloud CMA to make it a little prettier in branding. And then I would hand, you get one of your blank note cards and, thanks for looking at your value. I'm in the area. If you ever have any questions, here's my card. And I drop that and knock on the door. And the best one, I started working with actually, it was a very productive lead source because it's now an attorney I work with for estate sales. She'll refer business to me. But I saw a dumpster so you're walking around the neighborhood. So we see a dumpster in a driveway, and that's a telltale sign that they're either moving or they're getting a new roof. One of the two is happening. And then there was an estate sale like the next week. And so then I did my door drop with a little thing. And about a week later, I get this call, and I thought someone was going to yell at me. And she's like, well, aren't you clever? And I was like, I don't know.
You're like,
wow.
Do I need to hang up? I'm glad that I didn't hang up on her. Turns out they had moved their aunt to assisted living, and they were going to rent out the house. So they had done all the things, cleaned out the house, gotten it ready, had cleaners there. And that's the activity that I had seen. And unfortunately, like a week or 10 days later, the aunt passes, and now they have to sell. Wow. Because that was the only, and now they have to, clear out the estate. So in that process, she was, my contact, the person selling the house, was a high net, she managed like Merrill Lynch high net worth clients. So she sent me some very nice referrals, which was great. And then I ended up it was a kind of a complicated probate situation. And the attorney I worked with, we just struck up a really good business relationship. And she sends me, 5 to 10 clients a year. And maybe 1 to 2 sell right away, but most of the time they just need like a value in their house. So I do that at no cost for any of the clients she sends to me, because over time, at some point, they're going to sell. Someone's passed away, they need to know the step up value. So I do a CMA so their accountant can use it in the next tax year, and then I keep farming. A lot of those folks I just add right into my farm, and I have a kind of an estate sale farm, so they keep getting stuff for me over the years. So
okay, I have a couple of questions.
Did that even answer your question? I was talking for 5 minutes.
No, you did. But okay, so you said you bought everything under the sun for real estate, like
yes.
Products. Me too. My mentor back in the day was Lisa Bender. I've never known somebody who buys more stuff. Advertisers don't listen to that. I don't want Lisa to get a whole bunch of ads.
She still sort of does. I actually had to tell her stop paying me.
Listen. I don't know that it's a bad habit. You do learn. But
we
love
of stuff. Her.
One of the things, though, I remember back in the day almost buying. Lisa didn't buy this either, and I regretted it. Was these books that were written for you? So my curiosity is, did you write those books, or did you have a service write them for you?
A service wrote the books.
And how worth it was it? Do you feel like those are really worth it?
Oh yeah, 100%. In fact, they changed their model. So now it's subscription based. And in fact, I need to reorder because I would order like 500 to 1,000 at a time, because you just got a better price. And, I'd fill up my office in here. It was bursting at the seams. And I just noticed I'm down to 10 books. So I take these to open houses and give the books to buyers and sellers who come through if they're not represented. I use them for CMAs. I take them Corfax. Oh, I don't have one in here. I have a buyer seller guide and a really pretty brand. It all matches my branding on my postcards. that I take for CMA. So every seller gets my how to sell homes fast. And this book talks mostly about staging and pricing correctly and all the things we want them to listen to us. But I find people either read it cover to cover or they don't care at all. But either way, I get a lot of credit
There's some
for
shine from
having
that.
it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's called building the authority in
Yes.
your expertise, right?
Yep.
In your niche. And regardless of if they read it or not, like the fact that your face is on a book, like that's
Yes.
building an authority.
Yes. And I've done Facebook ads with it, would you like a copy of my free book? And it's been actually a really good way to re-engage with people that are in your greater sphere. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that I use it. But door drops, kind of getting back to the farming stuff, door drops is one way that I would use.
I'm thinking we need like a designation for you. We should start a designation like certified master farmer.
It can't be through Realtor though.
Yeah.
That's not allowed.
No. Oh, we've been. Oh,
it's been a couple weeks of talking about Realtor. We're
okay. Yeah, let's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Have you thought about trying to figure out a way to get this like to the top of the Amazon bestseller list just for like a day so you can be a best-selling author?
I have not.
I'm in. If you want to do it, let's figure out how to do it because that would be great. I think that this is one of the low-key one of the best authority plays ever. I think I regret not doing it back in the day. It was one of those webinars where you can't leave and you can't fast forward, and if you leave, you have to rewatch all over again. I don't know if you've ever.
It's probably the exact same one.
Okay,
that sounds very familiar.
And I was just like, I'm not gonna buy from somebody who got me with this tactic. I can't do it. But now I regret it. I always thought it was a great idea.
Yeah, it used to be a little clunky to order the books and how you'd have to reorder, and now they have it really automated and you can choose different covers and it's actually quite slick. So they've done a great job and they keep you subscribing. Because what I would also do is you have to subscribe. And then so I'd subscribe for a couple of months and then I'd cancel. I'd order all the books I want for 2 or 3 years. And then I'd cancel because I don't need their webinars are fine, but you don't need to watch the same 5 webinars over and over. And then when I went to resubscribe, they're like, oh, well, now it's monthly. And it's fine because there's books included. So, it's still worth it. So.
See, now here's the thing. There might be some agents out there that could potentially understand this whole just because you order this book, that ain't gonna cut it, folks. Right? It's not just about the book. You have to understand the fact that she's been farming for some time. She's been putting signs up. It's culmination of all these things that's happening that's bringing this result. It's not one just so please don't just order a book and come back to us 3 months later I have 1,000 copies of my book and I get no business.
Yeah, I call it I think of it as layering, the fundamentals, and and it's so true, and you hear this for so long about that if you have the listings you're controlling the market. And it's really true. I enjoy working with buyers, don't get me wrong. But the power in having a listing and how that kind of layers out to get you more business, it's crazy how powerful that is. And so I'm really glad that I made this shift to be intentional about, I really do. I want to always work with buyers, but I wanted at least my business, half my business, if not more, to be listing focused. And it also allows you to better manage your time. I mean, in our markets, I've had 4 buyers that I mentioned this year. 3 of them I've had for 18 months or longer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
because that's how freaking long it takes to find their unicorn house in the area they want to be in. And they're lovely people, right? And they're getting bid out, and then they get busy, and then they're priced out of the market. So you have to shift and start all over, right? So it's exhausting. I feel bad for them, and you can't have 20 buyers at the same time as a
I was going to call that out. I was always a buy side guy. I love the buy side. Listing is great because you can manage your time, But there's something fun about like, oh, we're gonna go get your dream home. We're gonna go fight for it, especially
Yeah,
in the
I
Seattle
absolutely
market.
love it. Yeah,
But
it's absolutely great, but it's devastating at the same time.
yeah, well, and doing it without a buyer's agent or a showing assistant, I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
yeah.
how could you do that as your main business and still do 15 to 20 deals a year? I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, you definitely have to scale it different.
All right, so you mentioned open houses.
Yeah.
I love open houses. I'm just like such a huge fan of that as a great way to find buyers, as a great way to find potential sellers. I think it's brilliant. I
Yeah.
think all new agents should do it. And you mentioned that you bring the book. What
Mhm.
else are you doing at an open house to kind of add value so that somebody might give you their information if they're not interested in buying your seller's house?
That's it. I'm not have people register. I have a pen and paper. I don't do anything fancy. I would rather just stand there and have a conversation with
Yeah.
someone than have some kind of script. So like I'm intentional in two ways when I do open houses. One is I'm there to show the property and make sure features are seen and I'm doing the best job for my seller. So that's one. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of times that I actually will have other people with me. Again, going back to how busy it is, like Cami and I have done a couple open houses that we have, I don't know, 50, 60 people
Yeah.
coming through. And like you just have to like you're doing traffic control, right? Getting everyone's questions answered. So there's that part of it. And then on the, just being aware of, asking questions,
Mhm.
how'd you hear about, I'm always curious, how'd you hear about the open house? Have you been looking for a while? I'm nosy. I want to know these things. And then I also want to know and get feedback from my seller. So just in the course of that, I don't have any checklists. I really read people's body language. There are serial people who come to open houses
Yeah.
that you see time and time again. Um, so that's kind of cool too, that people are like noticing you. They're probably going to everyone's open house, which is fine. And then when you get into a conversation, you find out and you elicit a little more. So, like, a lady came to an open house I was doing a couple months ago. She told me generally where she lived. She must have told me her first and last name because I actually looked her up in the tax records and I started marketing to her.
Just a
So
little
she's
light
on,
stalking.
yep,
Just
little
like,
light stalking. She's looked at the postcard, so I sent her one of the co-branded ones with Cami and I because we did that open house together, and we both equally talked to her because she was actually thinking about maybe buying this house, but it's I'm not quite ready. So we're like, well, we'll just consider this a co client, and so now we're marketing to her. So I'm very casual
yeah.
about it. You know, Again, I'm just not a like. I just find that people, if you, for me, I would rather just have a natural conversation than have some kind of agenda.
Yeah.
So
I love
that's what
that.
I do.
I love
So
it.
what would be like a farming 101 for dummies tip that you would provide? Because I mentioned in the beginning about there's a lot of agents out there that's looking
Hmm.
for the ideas on where the next deal is coming from, where the lead is coming
Sure.
from. So clearly, this is not a pick up the phone and dial for dollars and get a listing appointment type of play. So ideally speaking, when we're saying farming, like are they the expectation is that they're looking 12 months to do it? Like is it what type of financial commitment could someone expect,
Sure.
and like how should they start? Like is there a tips or
Yeah.
tricks that you can provide
Yeah.
that like
Because
may
again,
give them
like
jump start?
yeah, because like where I'm at today is not where I started,
Right.
and again going through it, and even trying different things with Corfax. So like I mentioned, I'm using the Corfax Elite. Anyone is happy to contact me. I can get you in touch with their team. Their stuff's on their website, but I'm happy to do a personal introduction to their team as well. They have a prepaid program that you get about a 10% discount. They've changed this over the years, but right now it's a straight 10% discount. I know how much I'm going to be spending every month and every year with them.
Mm.
So I am happy to give them 6 months of my farming money at a time. And it makes it easy when you get a commission, right? Like, fine, just charge my credit card, I'll pay it. And then I'm not having to worry about that. And I'm getting 10% off. So I'm all in for that. So I think my postcards at the 10% off are probably now with, postage and everything has changed a lot in the last 2 years. I think they're probably 80 cents ish,
Mm.
77 cents, something like that, all in. So that's printing. There is some setup fee when you first start with them, like to do the custom design. So once you get started, um, so do the math. If it's like
So
80
it's
cents a
80 cents
postcard
times 7,000.
in
You said you
that
were up to
range,
about
yeah,
7,000.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So,
Got it.
I'm spending and again, I didn't start there.
Yep.
And I really had to convince myself the ROI was there, right? So I
Right.
get that first one and I'm like, oh, holy cow, this works. So I, add another 500 names. And I think like pretty quickly in that first year to 18 months, I probably get up to about 3,000
Mm.
households, and I'm there for a while until I add like adding all of Kingsgate was probably another like 2,200 names, and then again I've removed some areas and added some areas, and so I was just looking at it and I'm at like 7,200. I think
Right.
is
And
where I'm
and
at right
and and
now.
it's okay to start small. Like I always recommend
Yeah,
start where you live, people,
absolutely.
because
Yeah,
that's how you get them to come to your door with a
yeah.
postcard.
Here's the other part of choosing, and this is the conversation I had this morning with this lovely agent who was like trying to figure this out. So the other thing, the way I started, because I didn't know there were other tools out there, I started by just pulling tax records and using in our
Mm,
system in the Northwest MLS. I used Realist and I
yeah.
pulled by subdivision, right? And so I knew, Lake Hills 1, Lake Hills 2, and it pulled them all. It was a lot of manual touching of sheets and data because it doesn't always format the way that you needed to format it. I realized doing it that way, I was missing addresses randomly because instead of it being like Lake Hills 2, it was like Lake Hills dash 2. And for whatever reason, they end up not having the same homogeneous name that you're getting this. So I like using the mapping feature. But
Mm.
even better, if you're in a title state, go to your favorite title rep. So like Chicago Title has Active Farm, Stewart Title has something else that looks the same. They're
They
slightly
all
different.
have something.
They
Yep.
all have something. They're
Yep.
probably all using the same database.
Yeah.
The best part is, so again, you can pull it by subdivision. But I like using the mapping feature because then you're like, hey, I want to, do a square or a circle, or I want to carve out these two cul-de-sacs because those are condos or those are houses that are brand new or whatever the thing is. So you draw your circle and then in Active Farm, you hit a button and you export it exactly the way Corfact wants it. And that literally probably has saved me like 10 hours every time I work with these
Mm.
spreadsheets.
Mm.
Because you're doing, because they're big. They're big spreadsheets.
So
And
another.
then I also set them up by whatever I want to call them. So most of my farms are set up by the subdivision name or the area description. And then my mini farms are set up kind of in the same way, but they might be like, Kevin Hall's listing, Bellevue, Newport Hills, like just so I know why I chose it. And then I have some other mini farms that we haven't really touched on. So I have like sphere of influence, and I kind of have a hot lead sphere of influence farm. And it's a little bit of a catch all, but it's like my dentist and owners of restaurants that I frequent and people who may. I have a past client one, but sometimes past clients end up in this one. Really close friends, family, people that, hey, I just want to keep reminding them I'm in my business. I'm in the business. We all have people in our lives who choose other agents and then come back and they're like, I forgot that you were an agent.
Yeah.
And you're
Beth,
like, well, whose fault is that? Mine.
okay, so this is a great segue because and we didn't even talk about this. So what we often do here is we look up things that get posted by agents on, Reddit or, Facebook groups and
Or
things.
one of those
And
Facebook groups, and every other
yep. So
one
so
is
so, so
someone.
here's one that I pulled, and this one is, and usually, so what we do is we would kind of like would kind of like read it, right?
Can you read that to me? Because I can't.
Yeah. So it's coming. All right. So here we go.
He's trying to pop it
Okay.
up on the screen here.
I'm trying to pop it up on the screen here. So all right. So
I read that. I read that one this morning, and I did that exact one. I was like, oh my gosh, what are the chances? I mean, well, I guess the chances are good because every other post in that group is about someone selling the real estate. So I have comments. Are they snarky? I don't want to disrespect that person though. Yeah. So my comment, do you want me to comment on that? Oh, okay. So my comment is real estate is tough and it doesn't always bring out the best. And I know in this situation it's about referrals. So that probably is a good lesson about like, you know, showing your sphere how you can help with referrals. It's a great extra income. But like at the end of the day, I personally wouldn't have put the amount of energy it would have taken to write that post because I know I have like sold my parents' investment property and I wanted to poke my eyes out. That it was horrible. Like I love my parents, but when you are also the person who is trying to be an emotional support and the person selling it, it's really hard. When I sold one of my own investment properties because of the stuff that was going on and we were getting the place ready and there was a bunch of stuff to do, I had one of my colleagues list it for me because I'm like, you know what? I should not be wearing these hats. And so that's what I would say about friends and family is like some friends don't want to talk to you about their personal stuff. And some people get really crazy. One of my husband's really good friends called me for advice. He's like, look, we would interview you, but I know my wife and I are really weird and get really like prickly about money stuff. So he's like, I just wanted to tell you, we're going to use another brokerage. It is not a personal affront. And I was like, that was really nice of you to call and, say that, hey, what should I ask this other agent? And so it was a weird kind of, but fun conversation. So anyway, I learned a long time ago, you can't put a lot of energy into it because people have their reasons.
Well, see, and you just hit it on the money. Like this friend got to a point where he let you know that he's not going to be coming to you. And that's because you were on top of his mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't know me a call.
And the thing that drives me nuts about the whole referral thing is most agents do just end up coming into these Facebook groups and go, hey, who do I know? Like, oh, this is the best. What rockstar agent do I know in Enumclaw, Washington, right? And then everybody and their cousins are like, oh, this.
And then you should talk to this person, and you should talk to this person.
And it's crazy. Like, I had a friend that moved to North Carolina. I Googled people, right? And I picked up the phone and I called each and every one of them. And I basically ranked it based on, do they have online presence? Are they creating content? And who actually called me back in timely manner?
Yep. Right? Or what do their listings look like if it's a listing or on the buyer side? But what do their stats look like? Like I'll stalk them on Zillow and Redfin and see what kind of stats I can see.
Right,
on them,
right.
If they're outside of our MLS.
But most people just come to Facebook groups and go, "Ooh, hey, what rock star do I know?"
Well, they start a little bidding war.
Yeah.
All right, do I hear 25? Do I hear 30? Who's at a 32? 35% once, twice, right?
That's right.
I would call
Yeah.
out on this post, Jay, I've already said this before, but like the level of entitlement of a post like that, and that's not just this person. This is a lot of new agents.
Oh, there's a lot.
They get into the business, and it's not their fault because everybody's telling them, you've got to work with your sphere. You've got to get your family and friends to work with you. This is going to be where you do business the first couple years. And I just feel like that's a really unfortunate lie that people are told. In my experience of seeing hundreds of agents go through the startup process, most people don't work with their family and friends right off the bat because most people aren't in the business for that long and they're not to be trusted. And by the way, you're not to be trusted in your first year of real estate.
Absolutely.
Go get a mentor.
That's why you have mentors.
And if you ask me how I can convince you or help you convince your mom to pay you a full 3%, I'm going to kick you in the chest because you don't deserve it. You should be paying her to get to sell her house the first year.
Oh.
Honestly, it's
I
a
think that
crazy
you are
thing.
so. It's like that pyramid thing, right? That like this is where you're going to get all your deals, and this is how it flows. And it really should be. Look to your friends and family to support you, just like you would support them in getting a promotion. But like, I'm not going to go see my family if they're like doctors, like or financial people. I'm not like, sorry.
Yeah.
So
100. Yeah.
It's,
yeah,
it's,
drives-
it's
so
it
and
drives
be
me
incredible.
careful
bananas.
and be careful what you ask for because sometimes because I have done business with friends and sometimes you're not as good of friends anymore.
Right.
And it's
For
no
sure.
one's fault. Just stuff happens.
It just works that way.
And just sometimes it's really uncomfortable and it's about they walked into a dirty house and now somehow it's your fault because the house they moved into had a hair on the toilet.
Well, and you're having really especially in a market like the Seattle metro area, Kirkland, Bellevue, Redmond, you're not just talking about what can you afford? It's how much cash do you have right now? Can you waive the appraisal up to a certain amount? Are you comfortable with these financial risks? And you're getting really personal. Hey, I need to talk to your lender. Him and I need to, or her and I need to. And that's a really kind of uncomfortable place to be with a friend. Even if you're comfortable with that friend, you might even know how much they make. But the idea of going, how much money do you have in the bank of account?
Yeah, let's start looking under the couch.
It's like,
under
hey,
the
let's go to
mattress.
happy hour. I saw your, bank statement.
Yeah, I saw 7 figures, my guy. You're paying for dinner, right?
You're paying for
Are you
beer.
ready to be judged by me? Like,
Right,
there
right,
are
exactly.
some boundaries that
Yeah.
maybe you should. Like, I've done business with friends successfully, and I've done a lot of business with a couple of my friends, and then other friends I'll probably never work with, and that's fine. That's fine. They're still my friends. I love and support them. Like,
as long as they get
fine.
you to give them the referral to the agent they use.
Yeah, how much commission kickback do they want?
Amen.
Well, I'll tell you what, Beth, you have dropped some nuggets, and I really appreciate this because a lot of people are just looking the wrong way when there's a way that is proven and it has worked, but you just need to be patient and execute. So we really, really appreciate it, but we do have to bring you back for part 2, which is more about being a solo agent, right? Because that's a whole another thing. But really appreciate you. And
Thank you.
So you're saying, by the way, she does not get paid by Corfac because I called for Corfac and asked if they have an affiliate program. They do not. Okay.
Yes.
She's really sharing this because she really loves it. And so is it really okay for people to reach out to you?
Yes.
Could they shoot you an email?
Yeah.
You want to give them your info?
Yes. So I just realized when I signed on, I should have even put my whole name. So the best email would be Elizabeth, Elizabeth, Avery, Avery, Homes, Homes @gmail.com. So Elizabeth Avery Homes @gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
And if you have any referrals from the
listen, you're not helping them unless they sign a referral agreement with you for any referrals to Washington.
If you have people that's moving to Kirkland, Washington or Bellevue, Washington, this is the lady right here. So, talk about adding value. So that's the least you can do in terms of, returning the
That's right.
favor, right?
And I do work with
So
buyers.
absolutely. So Beth, thank you
Thank you
so much.
guys.
Thank
It was
you.
This
so
Good to
much
was
see
seeing
you.
so much
you.
fun. I can't believe we spent over an hour, but
Oh my
if I
gosh.
didn't stop us, we probably could have gone like another
Yeah,
hour.
right.
So,
For
Okay,
sure.
so next time over beer and wine, okay?
absolutely.
I'll
And
come out. I'll come out to Seattle and we'll do it.
Okay. Sounds
we will
good.
check you guys out next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. Peace.
Yes, thank you, Beth. Almost called you